From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Our author for this hour is Tiki Barber, and he's getting to be a well-known pundit. Now, only in this town is that down to criticism. You can catch him on the Today Show on NBC. You can catch him real early on the Joe Scarborough Morning Joe Show on MSNBC. And you can catch him real early or late Sunday on the NBC Sunday Night Football in America. About the only place you couldn't catch Tiki was on the football field when he was a star for the New York Giants. Maybe I'll do a prediction on the Redskins-Dallas game, but don't have my hopes up. The great thing about introducing somebody famous as famous as Tiki Barber is that you don't have to read a long list of where they're from and what they've done. And besides, that's what we have Google for now anyway. You should just know that Tiki Barber is from Roanoke, Virginia, one of the prettiest places in America. If you just drop off of Interstate 81 down there, you head into the old-style countryside of Virginia, you may never want to leave, but to our good fortune, Tiki Barber did leave. And now he and his twin brother, Ronde Barber, a football star in his own right, are writing books. And they're targeted to pre-high school young men and some women to show them that through sports, life is worth living and that challenges are worth overcoming. Their latest effort is Go Long, a Simon & Schuster book on the story of two young brothers, guess what, who try to play football and grow up. So ladies and gentlemen, the Library of Congress and I am welcome and pleased to have Tiki Barber.
Thank you. Am I on? Okay, I'm on. So I don't need this. So, good afternoon. Oh, that's weak. Come on, good afternoon. Much better. As Tom was saying, I grew up right down the road here in Roanoke, Virginia. And I'll use this one. It's a little bit better than this one. And bear with me for 2 seconds. I'm not stripping up here. Okay, let's start again. Good afternoon. Wonderful. Like Tom said, I grew up in Roanoke, Virginia, which is right down the road, around the corner, about 4 hours. And the reason I love Virginia is because there's so much history, which is why it's such a pleasure for me to be here in the nation's capital, because so much history happened in this place. It's actually one of the reasons that me and my brother decided to write books, because our oldest traditions come from oral history. And now with so many different ways to translate history, whether it's orally or on blogs or in books, I think it's something that I can have a lot of pride in to pass down my stories. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I grew up in a single-parent household. My father left when we were young. I spent a lot of time down at Virginia Tech. Fortunately, I decided to go to the University of Virginia, though, for college. And I learned a lot of great things there. One, about being an independent person. Two, about how to socially interact with people of different races and colors and sexes and everything else. But three, and most importantly, I wasn't just seen for what I was good at, which was a football player. I was seen as someone who could accomplish along a lot of different avenues and venues. And so as I see these kids in the rows and on the floor, I would say to you guys, it's okay to be a great athlete, but it's even better to be a great student, to be a great reader. And so when my brother and I decided to write books, those are the messages that we wanted to send. The way this is going to work is I'm going to talk for just a little bit, and since amazingly enough, I don't have one of my books on me, I'm going to have my friend here, Daniel, come up and read a little bit of it for us, because this is what it's all about, getting kids to read. And then I'm going to open it up to questions for all of you all, but don't ask me about Dallas and the Redskins, because just like everybody else in this room, I don't have a clue. Why did we write children's books? Well, it started like this. Me and my brother were both Verizon literacy champions, trying to encourage boys in particular, but kids in general, to read, because that's when you can find so many adventures, so many different avenues to dream about. Secondly, we had kids. I had 2 boys. My brother, ironically enough, has 2 girls. I think I make the boy jeans. He makes the girl jeans. But it was a way for us to pass down some of our great stories from when we were little to them. And obviously, they center around sports and football, which is a lot of fun for anybody, because we all know how fun it is to watch sports. And our first story, which is my favorite, was a picture book. It was called By My Brother's Side. And in that book, I hurt my knee and I couldn't play sports, and so I had to watch and depend on my brother to be successful. There it is, right in the front. And he was always by my side. My friends were always by my side. My parents and my coaches, in particular my coaches who served as my father figures, were by my side. And as I got older and more successful, I realized I was standing on their shoulders. It was my brother and my mother and my Coach Tolley, Coach Spangler, my friends Paco and Chris and Nettie. Those are the guys who, as I ascended, they were patting me on the back and lifting me up. And they were the ones that I could feel proud for to be successful. So we wrote one book, and it was a success. So we just said, hey, this wasn't that bad. Let's do it again. So we wrote 2 more picture books. And then we decided, because as we all know, we all grow up. Kids get older, and they have different challenges and different things that they face. And especially, as some of you all know and may soon find out, going from elementary school to middle school, it's a pretty big adjustment. All of a sudden, you're not the big man on campus. All of a sudden, 8th graders pick on you. All of a sudden, you're not the best football player on the team, or the best soccer player, or the best lacrosse player. And it can be challenging. And so we started writing chapter books about that transition. And we have our second chapter book, which is out last week, called Go Long, which is what we're here to talk about. And in that book, it's a different conflict. We have a teammate when we get a new coach who doesn't get along with the new coach. And we all have to figure out, as family, as friends, as teammates, how to make it all work. So, at this moment, before I open up the floor to questions, Daniel, who didn't know he was going to be put on the spot by asking for an autograph 5 minutes ago, is going to be put on the spot and come read the first chapter of Go Long. Daniel? Ready? Introduce yourself.
All right. I'm Daniel Derrico. I'm from Oakton, Virginia, and I love football. All right. Chapter 1, The New Straw. I'm breaking this one big time, Ronde. Ronde Barber stared back at his identical twin as they faced each other at the line of scrimmage. In your dreams, Tiki. Don't blink or you'll miss me, Tiki shot back. Ronde let out a big yawn, patting his mouth like he was bored. I'm so scared. Then came the hut of the quarterback. Thanks. Matt Clayton and Tiki took off like a shot. Ronde backpedaled a few steps, then turned and matched his brothers stride for stride. Ronde did not look back for the ball. He kept his focus on Tiki, waiting for him to make his move. Ronde watched his eyes, knowing they would widen just before the key moment. Ronde had learned this trick last season. It was part of his education in how to cover wide receivers. But it sure helped when that wide receiver was your identical twin. He and Tiki knew each other inside out, backward and forward. They didn't just look alike, they thought alike. Ronde could have covered Tiki with his eyes closed. Sure enough, 10 yards down the field, Tiki's eyes widened for the briefest moment. On cue, he faked to the outside, then cut to the inside, straight across the field. Matt Clayton had already let the ball fly, a bullet speeding toward its appointed meeting place with Tiki's chest. But Ronde was one step ahead of them both. He cut in front of Tiki, leapt into the air, and with his outstretched fingertips, knocked the ball away. I forgot. Okay. But Ronde was one step ahead of both of them. He cut in front of Tiki, leaped to the air, and with outstretched fingertips knocked the ball away. Okay. Stop here. Okay. He landed hard in the grass, but it was worth it to hear Tiki's disappointed groan. "Oh man, you're a pest, Ronde." I try, Ronde replied, grinning as Tiki reached out a hand to help him up. "Man, I'm glad you're on my team," Tiki said, shaking his head. The boys trotted back to the line of scrimmage, where their friend and practice partner, Matt Clayton, was waiting for them. "Awesome coverage, dude," he told Ronde. "Did you spy on us in the huddle?" "No way," Ronde said, still smiling. "I just knew." "He finishes my sentences for me all the time," Tiki told Matt. "No, you're the one who does that," Ronde protested. "You both did it," Matt said, laughing. "I've heard you. It's weird." Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'll sign it first. He had to earn his signature. He didn't know it, though.
I was a part of it.
There you go.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This is what it's all about. Kids like Daniel are the reason that I write children's books, because I want boys to be engaged, and girls, if they like football, to be engaged, to read, to find a passion for something and attack it. And the best way to find that, because a lot of us won't get to play on the gridiron in the NFL, a lot of us won't get to travel to the moon. I wanted to be an astronaut, by the way, before I became a football player. A lot of us won't travel in the Middle East. But a way to get that and experience that is in a book. And that's what writing is all about. That's what all of these authors, whether you're writing cookbooks or football books or books about politicians or historic figures, it's about translating people to places that they wouldn't otherwise get to go. Me and my brother have been successful as football players because we learned early on how to set goals, how to look at ourselves and say, this is what I want to be. And it was very simple for all you kids. This is what we did. We got a sheet of paper. We wrote down our goals. I want to be a great football player. I want to be a straight-A student. I want to be the person who cleans up the dishes. My mom snuck that one on there every now and then. But we would write our goals on a sheet of paper, get a little piece of masking tape, and stick it on our bedside. And then every night before we went to bed, we'd look at it and say, what did I do today to reach my goal? Did I work hard in school? Did I work out a little bit harder in the gym? Did I scrub that dish really hard? What did I do? And if I could say I didn't do enough, I had to do more. If I could say I did do enough, well, guess what? I still had to do more. That's how you become successful. By looking at your goals and visualizing your goals and talking about your goals to one another. For me and Ronde, it was easy because we had a natural competition built in with one another. I couldn't be successful without him wanting to be successful. And he couldn't be successful without me saying, there's no way I'm letting you be more successful than me. And I have to admit, I retired without a Super Bowl ring and he has one. But I can always say this, I was always the bigger, the stronger, the faster. And ultimately, I made more money than him. So, hey, we're all good. But that's the competition that we would have with one another. And we had fun doing it. And so I encourage all you kids, whether it's a sibling, whether it's someone in your class, whether it's your mother who went back to school when me and Ronde went back to school to get her graduate degree in business administration. And she'd call me and say, I'm making straight A's. What are you guys doing? That innate competition that all of us have, if you can do it in a friendly way and not a malicious way, can drive you to capitalize on what your passion is and find success. That's what I like to talk about in my books. And I hope that all of you, even some of you adults, it's an easy book to read, you can do it in a day, will find that and kick off and go long. And the good thing about writing books, unlike the NFL where a lack of physical ability and bad knees drove me from the NFL, I can write books forever. And you know what? So can all of you. So can all of you. So, thank you all. And now is the fun part for me, because I love interacting with people. And I'm glad my signing just ended, because it's pouring outside now. You guys are safe in the tent. Life is all about timing, isn't it? So, I would encourage you all to step up to the mic, or step up to the mic and ask me a question. Go ahead, sweetheart.
I forgot my question.
You forgot? Oh. You can come back, don't worry.
Is it hard to write books?
Is it hard to write books? Well, for me and Ronde, it's just like everything we've always done. It's been a team effort. And we have a great team at Simon & Schuster. It's me, my brother, a writer, Paul Mantell, and Paula Wiseman, who is our editor. And we get together, we find some great stories that happen to us, we put them all on paper, and we put them all together, and we see what comes out of it. And then Paul writes a little bit, then we edit a little bit. Paul writes a little more, we edit a little bit more, until finally it comes out as Kickoff, or Game Day, or By My Brother's Side, or Teammates, or the newest one, Go Long. Go ahead.
I'm sure you realize that you've been blessed to have 3 careers already, as young as you are. There's time for a couple of more.
All
Do
right.
you have anything in mind?
Unfortunately, it won't be working over here because my wife said she'd divorce me if I ever became a politician. So, sorry. But I don't know. There's a lot of things that I've have passions for, and that's what keeps me reinventing myself, and it keeps it fresh in my mind what I'm doing. So you're right. I am a children's book author. I have been a football player. I'm a broadcaster on NBC. And recently, I signed a joint venture to refurbish affordable housing because I don't want this to become a political speech. But after this election and all the nonsense gets stopped talking about, affordable housing is going to be something that people are going to need.
Exactly. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Do you usually get along well with Ronde?
Do I usually do what?
Wait till he comes back to you.
Do I usually get along with Ronde? Well,
Back a little bit and press-
there's 2 answers to that question. What your parents want to hear? Of course we do. And what the truth is, we used to fight all the time. And we physically stopped fighting when I was 16 because I punched him in the stomach one time, and I broke my wrist. And so we started to realize that we can actually hurt each other. So we stopped fighting. As we got older and more mature, we don't even verbally argue anymore. We're each other's best friends. And it's a bond like none other, that of a twin or of a sibling. So I guess that answers your question. Maybe not?
Yeah,
Thank you.
My question.
Go ahead.
What was your favorite book as a kid?
My favorite book as a kid, The Little Engine That Could. And you know what's interesting? The train was female. Not a lot of people know that. And I didn't know it then, but I'm glad that the train that was female was my role model when I was a kid. Because you think you can, you think you can, you think you can. You know what my mom always says?
You think you can?
If you believe in yourself, you'll always be successful. So, go ahead.
In Game Day, was there actually a play called Old Bread and Butter?
It wasn't called Old Bread and Butter. That was just simplistic. But we did have a play like that. The beautiful thing about when me and Ronde were little, we were 21 and 22. He was 21 because R comes before T. So that's how our coach would tell us apart. And we looked exactly alike. And so we both would be in the backfield, and people couldn't tell us apart. And so they didn't know who was the faster one, who was the slower one, who was getting the ball, who had the ball. So we could do these trick plays to make touchdowns. So we used it to our advantage. But we did have the play. It was not called Old Bread and Butter. I think it was called Statue of Liberty, something reverse, something like that. Go ahead.
What was your favorite book that you wrote?
What was my favorite book when I was little? How old are you?
That you wrote.
That I wrote? My favorite book that I wrote would probably be my first one, By My Brother's Side. See, the great thing about being an author is that you can take creative license. You can make yourself a little bit better than you are, or maybe worse, whatever it is. But By My Brother's Side was an actual event that happened to me when I was about 11 years old. I was riding on a place where I shouldn't have been riding on my dirt bike, and I wrecked. And I cut my knee open down to the bone. And I couldn't play, and literally it was the encouragement of my family and my brother that allowed me to come back and be successful. So that's my most favorite one, because that's what I live by. Go ahead.
Were you nervous your first rookie game in the NFL?
My first rookie game in the NFL, I was very nervous. I don't know how many people are here from New York or have been to a Giants game.
I'm a Giants fan.
Well, that stadium is pretty intimidating. And so I started my first game, my very first game I started, because Rodney Hampton, who was before me, got hurt. And I walked out onto that field, and there's 80,000 people, which is the most I'd seen in a long time. Scott Stadium down in Charlottesville wasn't like it is now. It was smaller. We played in front of 40,000. So imagine twice the number of people staring down at me. I'm scared, I'm nervous, and we're playing the Philadelphia Eagles. But we beat them. So yes, it was a great experience. Go ahead.
Who do you think is going to win today, Maryland or Clemson?
Maryland or Clemson? You know what? You're depressing me right now, because you know what I just heard?
What?
Duke is beating Virginia 24-3.
What?
I can't look at college sports right now. I'm going to say Maryland.
Thank you.
Just because we're closer to Maryland. Go ahead.
I think I might be the only person here who first learned about you through your books, so.
Very cool.
All the
I like
football
that.
talk, I don't
At least it wasn't
understand.
Project Runway.
I missed that one, but I'll check into it. But I do work with children, and one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of educators have either downplayed or outright eliminated competition among their children. And I was wondering if this is something that you have encountered, if you've experienced this, and what you think about it.
I haven't encountered it. Well, I did in a small way. In New York City, there's a lot of competition to get your children into school. It's unbelievable that 5-year-olds have to take tests to get into school. But we did. And so we all have to go recruit, or not recruit, but solicit and look at schools. And one of the schools we looked at, I asked about their sports program. And they said, everybody plays, everybody gets a medal, and basically nobody fails. And I took exception to that, because I think one of the reasons that I am where I am is because I did fail in my life. I wasn't pushed along as an athlete. I had to struggle in order to get to where I am. And I think there's a direct correlation with some of our failing schools in this country, where we push kids along without having achieved anything. And so, without the challenge of competition and the threat of failure, you can't have progress. And so, to your point, I don't agree with not challenging one another against each other, because that's what makes us want to be successful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Go ahead. Oh, you scared me with your shirt. It says boo, by the way.
Why did you retire football?
When? Why or when?
Why?
I retired football because my last season I played in a game against, ironic, the Philadelphia Eagles. And we lost, unfortunately, and I got beat up very badly. And I couldn't get out of bed for 4 days without lifting up my neck and taking 5 minutes. And my wife came to me one day and said, let's take the kids out to the park. And two things went through my mind. One, I can't do this. And two, I don't want to do it. And so when I thought about what this was leading to in my life, I thought 10 years from now, Am I going to want or be able to play with my kids? Or when they say, Daddy, let's go play soccer or football, am I going to want or be able to do it? And I made a quality of life decision to walk away from the game of football while I still could. Now, a lot of guys don't do that. A lot of guys will play until they're beat up and done and crippled. But that wasn't me. And it's what I hope you guys can learn from that, is that there's other things besides sports. There's education, there's family, there's life. And I have a lot of life left to live, and it doesn't have to be about football. Go ahead.
Why did you choose UVA over Virginia Tech?
Well, my mom's sister, my aunt, is sitting right here. And so I can't talk too badly because she's a Hokie too. But it's kind of a personal story. Like I said, my father left when we were 4, and we grew up without him. And he was a football star at Virginia Tech. And so as we were starting to make that transition to being, going from high school into college, a lot went into our decision. One, where was the best academic place where we could go? Where was the best place we could excel on the football field and in track? We were also good track athletes. But then it came down to, what do we want to be? And ultimately, it was an individual, an independent person. And the last thing that we decided we didn't want to do was follow in my father's footsteps. And so we went to Virginia instead. I have a great affinity for Virginia Tech because they raised me there. I was always up at school, always going to those football games. But at the end of the day, we wanted to be ourselves, individuals. And Virginia was the best place for us. And it turned out to be the best decision I've ever made in my life. So.
If you hadn't wrote children's books when you retired from your football career, what would you have done?
If I never had played football?
If you hadn't wrote children's books after you retired from your football career, what would you have done?
If I hadn't wrote children's books? Well, that's a hard question to answer because so much of my life is shaped by my career. So I'll tell you what I would have done if I had never played football. I was an academic. I prided myself on being smarter than everyone else, not being a better athlete than everyone else. And for the longest time, I wanted to be an astronaut. I think it was because I was shaped by the Challenger disaster when I was in middle school. And so I went to school to be an aerospace engineer. And I found out I couldn't sleep being an aerospace engineer because you work too much. And so I went to the business school and was an MIS major, which is Management Information Systems, database programming, etc. So if I had never become a football player, if I hadn't in my 3rd year taken that next step up that plateau, I would probably be working for Microsoft or Oracle or one of these new internet startups that made a lot of money for a little bit, then lost a lot of money. But hopefully I'd be with a good one. So that's where I'd be. Go ahead.
It's not really a question, but your first book that you wrote, it kind of inspired me, that book By My Brother's Side, because I have a twin brother. And when I was reading it, I just thought, wow, that's like really nice, and it inspired me to be nicer to my brother because I don't want that to happen to him, because then if I neglect him, if I hurt myself, he won't help me.
Of course. What's your name?
Catherine.
Catherine?
Yeah.
You just made my day. Thank you. All right, one more we have? Couple more? One more. I'm being told I have to get off the stage. Go ahead. Ithaca, New York.
Was your brother in the NFL, and if he was, what team was he on?
My brother, it's a good question to end with. My brother plays for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this weekend they are playing the Favre-less, Aaron Rodgers-led Green Bay Packers. So, everybody in the room, since I no longer play for the New York Giants, let's say go Bucs. 1, 2, 3. Go Bucs! Thank you all very much. I hope you enjoy our books and enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.